Hey, everybody, it's Saturday, November 2nd. College football running through, although today's slate kind of sucks. Unless you're a Florida Georgia fan, I suppose, then you could look into that if that's the game that you're interested in. But otherwise, we are here to get rich. And speaking of Florida Georgia, I'm going to reference this solely for him. Florida Georgia Line fan Matthew Bove has joined me today. Team Degenerate. Matt, how we doing? Big week last week.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to, share all the intel since we recorded on a Thursday and the props don't come out typically till Friday, Saturday. So when I fire on those, but Seahawks came through. They made it more interesting than I would have liked in the second half, but there was a big 3-unit win. And then we hit on, let's see, one, two, three, four more props. We were on 4-0 there for Sunday, and then we bet the Dolphins plus 14. Again, barely held on at the end, despite for the spread having a 28-0 lead. So that just tells you how much the Dolphins suck.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So big week there. What's that put your season? What are we at now, season total wise here?
We are 35-17. We also bet George Kittle to go over. I think it was 69 yards on Thursday, and after he gets hurt the first play, I've been freaking out. But he's a beast and did it basically on one leg, limping back to the huddle after every catch he made. So he was able to go over the yardage. Right when after he went over, he was pretty much done for the rest of the day. So I think maybe he knew.
Yeah. So what we've learned is Kyle Shanahan or George Kittle listens to Team Degenerate. That's what I have gathered.
So 35-17, and the unit count, we were at 8 before last week, and we won 3 with Seattle. So that got us up to 11. 4 more on props would get us up to 15. 1 on the Dolphins, 16. Kittle, 17 units right now, which is outstanding.
It's a good bit. So let's go into tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about player props here later in the episode, but let's start with the simple stuff. Green Bay plays the Chargers tomorrow. Green Bay, a road favorite. In general, the rule of thumb, as you told us a while ago, is to kind of stay away from those, unless there's some obvious things that aren't being noticed in this case. But Green Bay is playing in LA, which is essentially a ninth home game for the Packers, if you want to look at it that way. The Chargers are really banged up. It looks like the Packers might be getting back Devontae Adams, Robert Tonyan, so they should be all systems go in terms of players they haven't had. What are your thoughts on this game in general? There are books. It kind of depends where you look. It looks like Green Bay is a 2.5-point favorite at most places.
Yeah, the sharps have finally started to come in a little bit on the Chargers, which has been a rarity in home games. They never bet on the Chargers in home. 90% of the public is on the Packers, so it's a huge public backing on Green Bay here. And if it wasn't for that, I'd probably be on Green Bay in this spot, just because the Chargers at this point are just pretty much an automatic fade at home. They are 14-28 against the spread at home since 2014. And they just, it's a 25,000 seat soccer stadium. And when you get the popular teams like Pittsburgh, who came in a couple weeks ago on Sunday night and just owned the building, and the Packers, should do the same. It's just pretty demoralizing when you're a home team, and that's the case.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why I mentioned, I joked it was a ninth home game for the Packers. There are some people that are expecting it to be maybe even as high as a 70-30 split, and that's crazy to think about in terms of that. But yeah, a big game for Green Bay tomorrow, a chance to get to 8-1, obviously something that, 8-1 is almost as good as you can ask for unless you want to be 9-0. The Packers have certainly had an opportunity to do that. They just weren't able to finish the job there against the Philadelphia Eagles, but getting to 8-1 would definitely be a big start. But we're not betting that game this week because of reasons Matt just mentioned. The games we are betting this week, there's the London contest, the Jacksonville Jaguars +1 against the Texans. Most people would probably tell you the Texans are the better team, but you are on the Jags and Minshew Mania this week. Tell me why.
Yeah, that's part of the reason most people, the public, is leaning towards Houston here. But, Houston has, a lot of holes on its team to begin with, in my opinion. And now this injury situation for them is, absolutely brutal. Obviously, everybody knows that Watt went out last week and he'll be out for the year. But it is not just him. They are out. Will Fuller will be out again. And in their secondary, they're missing two cornerbacks and starting safety Tayshaun Gibson. Lonnie Johnson is out. Bradley Roby is out. So, I mean, that's, just a ton of injuries to overcome. And this being in London, I think, is a little advantage for Jacksonville just because they have so much experience, in London lately. They've had success in recent, it's only a 4-game sample size here, but they are 3-1, covering the spread by an average of over 10 points per game in their last 4 London trips. And this is Houston's their first trip here. And, when you go to London, I want, coaches who I consider to be good coaches to be able to handle the trip correctly. And Bill O'Brien is not one of those coaches. So,
Bill O'Brien is probably the biggest enemy of Team Degenerate. I don't think that there's any question. In the time that I've known you and we've talked about this, I think you've cursed at him more than anyone I've thought of.
Mostly just because he always has a chance. He always has the talented enough team to at least compete with the Patriots, but it's always with his follies that they don't, when he, kicks field goals on 4th and 1 and punts from his, from the Patriots 40-yard line, stuff like that. Also a huge, matchup advantage with the Jacksonville pass rush against the Houston offensive line. Houston offensive line is not good to begin with, and they are missing, they might miss Laramie Tunsil. He's questionable. They have one guard who is also out. And the Jags are coming off a performance where they sacked Sam Darnold 8 times against a terrible Jets offensive line. Josh Allen has been a beast, the rookie, 7 sacks so far. Calais Campbell, I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name, but Yannick Ngakoue is a great pass rusher, even though I can't pronounce his name. So Jacksonville should be able to get after Watson. That's kind of my rule with the Texans. If I feel they're playing a team that has no pass rush and Watson has time, I'll look to the Houston side, but they don't with the Houston line. I want to look at Jacksonville here.
All right, so we got Jacksonville +1. Take a trip down south then. Carolina -4 against Tennessee. Tennessee was one of those teams early in the year, kind of high on. The Titans are like always, it almost feels like they're always kind of that team that's, some people like them, some people don't, and where do they end up? Right around 8-8, maybe 9-7. A little bit of a spark last week, I guess, but they should have lost against Tampa Bay. If the officials don't blow the whistle too early, Tampa probably returns a ball for a touchdown. That would have given them a lead that I'm not sure they would have relinquished. Carolina coming off their first loss. They got blown away last week by the undefeated San Francisco 49ers. You've got them -4 here, and you like Carolina at home against the Titans. What do we have here?
Yeah, you went over a good amount of some of the things I like. Tennessee has 2 fluky wins in a row. They shouldn't have been the Chargers. The Chargers, fumbled at the goal line to lose the game. And last week it wasn't just, the whistle on it was a fluky play to begin with, but the Bucks outplayed, Tennessee pretty much the whole game except for, the Winston turnovers, which I guess you could say are customary at this point. But I would say, from my scrimmage, Tampa Bay was clearly the better team in that game. And strength of schedule wise, I just feel like Tennessee is, their schedule has just not been very challenging. These are, some of the teams they played: the Colts, Cleveland, Indy, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Buffalo, Denver, the Chargers, Tampa Bay. Just not a strong strength of schedule. This line is weird to me. I don't know why it's only 4. I think it should be, closer to 6. So that has me a little worried that, the Sharps are on Tennessee, so I'm against the Sharps, which I'm normally not. But so maybe they're seeing something that I don't. But Football Outsiders has Carolina ranked as the 15th best team in the league, Tennessee 24th. So they think it should be closer to 6 as well. Big injury on the Tennessee offensive line. Ben Jones, their center, I don't think is going to play. They signed somebody off the street to play center. So that's a big factor when you don't have your center. And the Tennessee offensive line is, not good to begin with. They are last in Football Outsiders pass protection. And the Panthers are second in the league in sacks, led by Brian Burns, who the Packers should have drafted at number 12. But that's another story. He's been great. Gerald McCoy, they brought in a defensive tackle, has been very good. Bruce Irvin as an edge rusher has worked out for them. So their pass rush has been good. They're coming off a game, obviously, where they got their doors blown off. So they're going to be focused for this one, coming off that kind of performance. Teams that lose by 35 or more over the last 30 years are 56% against the spread. So obviously, big sample size there. Kyle Allen does concern me. I don't love him, especially on the road, but fortunately he's at home. He's had fumbling issues. And so that would be one concern of mine, but I do like Carolina to bounce back.
Just get the ball to Christian McCaffrey enough. That seems like a pretty sound offensive strategy. Let's look at the next game here. We've got interesting at Seattle. Now, we kind of talked about home field advantages a few weeks back and what the standard point spreads in your mind are for that. And this time around, you have Tampa Bay plus 6.5 at Seattle. Now, you kind of teased this to me the other night when you said a preview for this week. So tell me, what's Tampa not good? Jameis Winston, turnover machine. Seattle at home seems to add up to a big win for the home team, but what's got you thinking otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, to me, Seattle is an overrated team. One of the most, maybe the most overrated team in the league. I got the spread 6.5. It has dropped down to 5. Maybe I've seen a 4.5 in some spots, so I got out ahead of the line movement here. 80% of the tickets overall have been on Seattle, so you have that reverse line movement, which means the sharps are on the Bucks, and I will tell you why they are on the Bucks now. Obviously, just look at the records. People think Seattle is a much better team, but let's look at just yards per play. Seattle is on offense averages 5.9 yards per play. They give up 6.2, which is 30th in the NFL. Which people think Seattle, they think defense. Their defense has been terrible this year. So they're giving up more yards per play on defense than they allow on offense. Conversely, Tampa Bay is plus 0.1 in the differential. They gain 5.5 yards per play on offense, give up 5.4 in defense. So they are actually positive while Seattle is negative. And honestly, the difference why Tampa Bay has the record that they do is the turnovers. So Winston, you figure, well, people say obviously he turns the ball over every year. So, that is concerning, but, in my mind, I always figured turnovers at some point regress to the mean. So maybe he'll cut down a little bit. This is a bad matchup for Seattle in that, they love to run the ball. Tampa Bay's rush defense is outstanding. They're number 1 in the league on Football Outsiders. They shut down McCaffrey twice, the only team to do that. On Seattle, they need to run the ball for that play action to be effective. And, even if they can't run the ball, Pete Carroll will still try and run into a brick fence, as we saw, I guess, in the Dallas playoff game last year, which was ridiculous. So I like that matchup. And just Seattle, they're overrated. Look at what they've done. I give them a 4-point home field advantage, but at home this year, they haven't been good. They barely beat Cincinnati. They were outgained by Cincinnati 429 to 232. That was the first week of the year in yardage there. They got blown out by Bridgewater. They should have lost to the Rams if it wasn't for a missed field goal. And they got pretty much toasted by the Ravens. And even last week, the Schaub, they got out to a big lead because of some turnovers in the first half, but they allowed 7.2 yards per play to Matt Schaub, and they got outgained 510 yards to 322. So I know a lot of it was in the second half, maybe when they were playing a prevent. But if Devonta Freeman doesn't fumble the ball at the goal line, I'd probably lose my bet. So, Seattle didn't play very well last week. I just think right now they're an overrated team. And Tampa is a little underrated just because, they have a great run defense. They have 2 elite receivers. And if Winston could just not turn the ball over, they could win some games.
Yeah, Seattle's defense, that's not the Legion of Boom. It's not going to make anybody forget about them at all. It's a rough unit on that side of the ball. Last game, we've got Minnesota, a road favorite, 2.5 is when you got the line. You got the line a little earlier than some, but they're -2 or -2.5 going to Kansas City to maybe play Patrick Mahomes, probably play Matt Moore if I had to bet on that. But what do you like about the Vikings this weekend?
Yeah, we just had some movement on this game a few hours ago. It was 2 point, it was down on a lot of books. I took advantage of FanDuel like I did last week, putting the number up again. Like I did for the Atlanta game. So I guess they didn't learn their lesson. That's also a big point because I got that Seattle Atlanta game at 5.5 it closed at 7.5. So if I got it at closing at 7.5, I would have lost because Seattle only won by 7. But anyways, getting back to this game, I got Minnesota 2.5, figuring Mahomes is not going to play, and when it's announced he's not going to play, the line's going to jump above 3, which this afternoon Ian Rappaport put out a tweet that Chad Henne will be called up for this game, which probably means that Mahomes isn't going to play, in my mind and in the book's minds. So that game got taken off the board. It came back at around 3.5. So the fact that we were able to get a 2.5, 3 is the biggest key number, in football betting. 10% of NFL games are 3-point games, so it's huge to get under that key number of 3. And quite frankly, the Packers line last week closed at 4 or 4.5, and Green Bay and Minnesota, I consider them even teams right now in my power rankings. Green Bay's not a 1.5 better, on the spread than Minnesota right now. They're playing outstanding football. Cousins has played great. 1 o'clock starts. He's been terrific. I think I got that stat for you guys. I said I was going to get last week on his 1 p.m. against the spread. He's 36-18 in 1 p.m. games against the spread in his career. He's 10-21 in all other times of the day. So I think that's starting to get out there a little bit more. So maybe they'll start to be pricing in the spread, but it hasn't so far. So we could take advantage of that. Obviously, this is a 1 p.m. start, which will play into that trend. And Kansas City is starting to get a little bit more healthy on defense. Seems like Chris Jones and Kendall Fuller will play, but still against Dalvin Cook, he's just going to eat up that terrible run defense. And I expect Minnesota to win by more than 2.5.
So there you have it. That would be a big loss for Kansas City too, who would drop to 5-4 on the year. And in an AFC where you want to avoid going to Foxborough if at all possible, Kansas City doesn't control their destiny in regards to that anymore. Let's go to player props. And what we have here, so I'm going to give the ones that you have. You can explain why and kind of how you get to your ideas of where you want to be for your prop process. So you like Minshew Mania, Gardner Minshew to go over 250 yards passing, Jalen Samuels to go over 29 yards receiving, and Lamar Jackson to go over 194 passing yards tomorrow night against the New England Patriots. So how did you get to those? How do you decide to pick your props per week? So, for example, last week I know you were on David Montgomery over, I think it was 65 rushing yards or something like that. And he pretty much hit that on one big run and then ended up being well over 100 through the day. So how do you pick your numbers? How do you pick your prop bets? Because these are like little fun bets that people can kind of make. If you don't know anything about football, you can kind of throw some stuff at some players. It's almost kind of like fantasy football in a betting sense.
Very good point, Jacob. I listen to a lot of fantasy analysis when looking for these betting props. It has a lot to do with it. Just Montgomery, you mentioned it was over 49 yards, so it was an easy win. I listened to a report came out in the morning on Sunday morning. Ian Rappaport again with his tweet that Matt Nagy, was going to emphasize the running game. That he was embarrassed at the 6 carries last week, and that's something I look for. In these press conferences, if you listen, sometimes, these coaches are telling you the truth. I mean, it makes sense that he would, after running the ball 6 times, he's going to want to not do that again. He got killed for it, so it's going to make sense that he's going to feature Montgomery. Another example of that would be earlier in the season with the Packers when they were playing the Eagles on Thursday. Devontae Adams was coming off a game where he only had like 3 or 4 targets. And all week, all you heard was, hey, we got to get Devontae the ball. Quarterback said it, coach said it. Adam said it. And it's easy in the game plan to, if you want to get a guy a ball, you can get the guy the ball. You just put him, receiver, you make him the number 1 target, on the reads in most plays. And I placed Devontae Adams over yardage and over catches, and they hit in like the first quarter. So, I mean, when some of that stuff you could ascertain a lot just by listening to the coaches and the players during the week. And if someone had a poor week like last week, Kenny Golladay, I bet him over 65 yards against the Giants. He had a great spot against a terrible Giants defense, and he was coming off a game where he only had, 3 catches. So it makes sense. He's a number 1 receiver. They want to get him the ball. Injury situations I look at, I bet on DeAndre Hopkins over 6.5 catches last week because Will Fuller was out. He was facing a terrible Raiders defense that just allowed a perfect passer rating to Aaron Rodgers. and Hopkins was coming off 3 straight weeks where he had over 11 and 12 targets each game. So all he has to do is catch 7 of them to win. He's the best receiver in the league in my opinion. So I mean that was an easy win. So just a lot of these, if you study, and I go to a website, Number Fire, where they have projections for every player every week. I look at those numbers and compare them with the bets a lot. Just if you follow fantasy a lot, certain defenses suck against tight ends. That's why I bet on George Kittle against Arizona. They have notorious, for the worst pass defense against tight ends this year. So Kittle hit that. There's lots of teams that struggle with slot receivers. I try and take advantage of that. Just a whole host of things to look at there.
Yeah, it's kind of fun in that regard. So it's almost like Moneyball, but not Moneyball, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So that's where we're at there. Those are our bets for the week. Those are our props. Be sure to check us out at Matt Bove HS, at Jacob Westendorf, at Packer Pulse, and follow us on YouTube, Pulse of the Pack. Thank you guys for listening this week. We've got all of our bets. We'll do this all season long. We haven't quite decided what we're doing for the Packers bye week, since there won't be a Packers game to talk about in that regard, but I suppose gambling never stops. But make your bets this week, and let's get rich. Go ahead and tell us. Listen to the guy. I mean, he just told you earlier he's up almost 20 units. That's insane. 2 out of his 3 bets, actually more than 2 out of his 3 bets, he's hitting at that clip right now. So there's no reason not to at least take this advice, win yourself some money, and take your family on a nice little vacation there at the end of the year. But thank you guys for listening this week, and we will see you guys next time around.